The Pokemon Company have finally spoken out about a certain similar game. Justice is served over the Pokemon Van Gogh fiasco and the other survival game that launched at the worst possible time. I'm Ash Dixon, and this is GINX News. Well, I called it yesterday. Palworld broke 2 million concurrent players last night on Steam. Surprise, surprise, everyone's playing it. But this whole time, there's kind of been this feeling that things could get shut down at any minute due to all the accusations of plagiarism. After all, a lot of the pals look like Pokemon, and when it comes to Nintendo, we know they don't mess around. Well, it's happened. The Pokemon Company has spoken. They've said, "We have received many inquiries regarding another company's game released in January 2024. We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon intellectual property or assets in that game. We intend to investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to the Pokemon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokemon and its world and work to bring the world together through Pokemon in the future." Now, ultimately, that's a whole lot of corporate wish-wash that doesn't really say much at all. I personally interpret it as them saying, "Guys, we know Palworld exists, stop emailing us." Because let's be honest, we all know there were thousands of people with main character syndrome calling up Pokemon like, "Guys, I don't know if you're aware, but there's this game called Palworld and you should totally check it out." You know, as if the game wasn't announced 2 years ago and didn't sell 7 million copies. Great job, guys. Ultimately, I see this as Palworld in the clear. Yes, Pokemon say they will investigate, and they will investigate, but as much as Palworld's assets are incredibly similar, they're not stolen. And as long as that remains to be true, well, then I don't think there's much that Pokemon can do. But then again, I ain't an expert on Japanese media law, so what the hell do I know? And as much as we've spoken about Palworld on the show, I do love all the little tidbits of information about it that are coming out. Apparently, after they decided that guns were going to play a big role in the game, they needed someone to handle that side of development. The problem was, no one on the team had any experience in that area, and recruiting that skill set in Japan is pretty difficult. After all, they don't make many shooters there. As the CEO said, they needed someone gun-obsessed, so they hired an American. Kidding! What actually happened is they stumbled across a YouTube channel of a self-taught hobbyist. It was full of custom DIY gun animations, and well, they liked what they saw. Turns out it was a 20-year-old who worked part-time at a convenience store who had zero industry experience. But this is Palworld, so they offered him a full-time job and found him housing in Tokyo. And well, obviously, it worked out for everyone. And may that be a lesson for anyone watching. Take it from someone who grew up in a council flat to a single mum. Breaking into an industry that you're passionate about is very hard, especially if you don't have the privilege of money and connections, because wouldn't that be nice? And ultimately, while nothing is guaranteed, you can help make your own luck. So if you have a special talent, create something and put it out there for the world to see, because who knows, before you know it, you might be working on a game about cruelly exploiting and murdering innocent creatures. And it's for those kind of awe-inspiring speeches that you might consider subscribing to the channel. We're so close to breaking 1,000 subs, like painfully close, and I know that's a rather rookie milestone for some, but hey, we all got to start somewhere. It would mean a lot to me. Last year, the internet was flooded with this scene, a whole load of parasites trying to get their hands on a particular Pokemon card. It was a rather delightful Van Gogh-inspired Pikachu, and you could only get it at the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. We'll put a link in the description for the video we made at the time, particularly proud of that thumbnail. Ultimately, scalpers flooded eBay with the card, often at ridiculous prices. Genuine fans missed out, and in the end, the museum stopped issuing the card. It basically left a sour taste for everyone. Well, you might be pleased to know that there is some justice in the world, as 4 employees have now been suspended due to misconduct. The majority went against procedures by informing visitors when they could purchase tickets to the exhibition, valuable information considering the demand, while one employee allegedly stole a whole box of Pikachu cards, I imagine to try and make a cheeky buck online. The staff ranged from security guards to public service employees, and one had worked at the museum for 25 years. Big up throwing away your career for Pikachu in a hat.
Warning. Warning.
Oh, for God's sake, are we really doing this right now?
Puns incoming.
Okay, fine. Gogh Ness. Alfred Hitchcock. Goggenload. Big fat Gogh. Back to the story, and the whole thing serves many lessons. 1, scalpers are the scum of the earth. 2, people go mad over Pokemon cards. And 3, I still have no idea if I'm pronouncing Van Gogh correctly. Imagine developing a brand new survival game. You pour hours into making it and you're tasked with picking an optimal release date to help get the most attention possible. You eye up January 2024 and think, man, that time of year is dead. No one releases games around then. You list your early access on Steam, sit back confidently as the date approaches, and then bam! Palworld! Palworld! The whole world is talking about Palworld! And you weep as you're enshrouded in a huge Pokemon-shaped shadow. Well, that's what's happened to the conveniently named Enshrouded, the new open-world survival game from Keen Games. Now, I do exaggerate a little as the game had built up some hype before it entered early access yesterday, and while it's very reminiscent of games like Valheim, it does have a few things going for it. Its name refers to a malevolent magical shroud that holds many mysteries and will kill you if you dawdle about for too long, and despite some initial server issues which seem to have been resolved, there's been a lot of praise for its build mechanics. It's also leaned heavily into action RPG combat to help keep things fresh, and from the trailers there's obviously a lot of influence from modern Zelda and Souls games, which seems to be the trend right now. And while it doesn't reinvent the wheel and might be a little bit easy for a survival game at first, I'm personally just curious whether it can break through all the Palworld noise and find an audience. Perhaps it's your first time hearing of Enshrouded. Would you check it out? And for those who've played it, what do you think? I'm off to give it a little go, so check out yesterday's video somewhere around here. Thanks for watching as always, and we'll see you tomorrow.